All right, we are going to begin chapter 3, section 1. We are going to start off by watching a quick little summary video that will show here and summarize this unit.
The story of writing, astronomy, and law. The story of civilization itself begins in one place. Not Egypt, not Greece, not Rome, but Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is an exceedingly fertile plain situated between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. For 5 millennia, this small strip of land situated in what is today Iraq, Kuwait, and Syria fostered innovations that would change the world forever. Inhabited for nearly 12,000 years, Mesopotamia's stable climate, rich soil, and steady supply of fresh water made it ideal for agriculture to develop and thrive. About 6,000 years ago, seemingly overnight, some of these agricultural settlements blossomed into some of the world's first cities. In the period between 4000 and 3100 BC, Mesopotamia was dotted with a constellation of competing city-states. At one point, they were unified under the Akkadian Empire and then broke apart, forming the empires of Assyria and Babylon. Despite near constant warfare, innovation and development thrived in ancient Mesopotamia. They built on a monumental scale, from palaces to ziggurats. Mammoth temples served as ritual locations to commune with the gods. They also developed advanced mathematics, including a base 60 system that created a 60-second minute, a 60-minute hour, and a 360-degree circular angle. The Babylonians used their sophisticated system of mathematics to map and study the sky. They divided one Earth year into 12 periods. Each was named after the most prominent constellations in the heavens, a tradition later adopted by the Greeks to create the zodiac. They also divided the week into 7 days, naming each after their 7 gods embodied by the 7 observable planets in the sky. But perhaps the most impactful innovation to come out of Mesopotamia is literacy. What began as simple pictures scrawled onto wet clay to keep track of goods and wealth developed into a sophisticated writing system by the year 3200 BC. This writing system would come to be called cuneiform in modern times and proved so flexible that, over the span of 3,000 years, it would be adapted for over a dozen different major languages and countless uses, including recording the law of the Babylonian king Hammurabi, which formed the basis of a standardized justice system. But Mesopotamia's success became its undoing. Babylon, in particular, proved too rich a state to resist outside envy. In 539 BC, the Persian king Cyrus conquered Babylon and sealed his control over the entirety of Mesopotamia. For centuries, this area became a territory of foreign empires. Eventually, Mesopotamia would fade, like its kings, into the mist of history, and its cities would sink beneath the sands of Iraq. But its ideas would prevail in literacy, law, math, astronomy, and the gift of civilization itself.
All right, so let's take a look here. Take a look at this helmet. As you look at it, just kind of think about what does it say about how these people, the Sumerians, rose to power. I mean, most people would look at that helmet and think they conquered people. If you have a helmet, it's usually for battle. What does it say about their wealth? You look at that thing, and they probably have some wealth. I mean, that's a gold-looking helmet. You've got a carving of a man and woman that was found amongst Sumerian ruins. What does this say about family? I would look at that and think that the families were close, with the fact that there they are kind of holding each other. So all of these artifacts came from a place called Mesopotamia, which translates to the land between the rivers. It is the earliest known of the civilizations. On the east, you have the Tigris River, and on the west, you have the Euphrates River. And if you look at these, which way do you think they flow? They flow towards the Persian Gulf. Okay, down there towards the Persian Gulf, they flow. The rivers flow more than 1,000 miles across the Middle East. This area today is Iraq. This is where Iraq is today. So around the year 4000 BC, people migrated into this area of Mesopotamia. So when we use the word migrate, we're talking about people moving from one place to another. So many came that this is actually going to be called the cradle of civilization. Okay? The Mesopotamian civilization had a great influence in the ancient world. So around 3500 BC, you are going to have in the southern part of Mesopotamia a group of people called the Sumerians. These were short, stocky, black-haired people. Their area where they lived was going to be called Sumer. Hence they were called Sumerians. This is the earliest known civilization, not the earliest known people, but the earliest known civilization. Okay, when we talk civilization, we're talking about society that has developed knowledge of farming, trade, government, art, science. For the first time, you've got people that control their environment. And what does this mean to control your environment? Well, one of the main things they're going to have control around there is the fact that they exist surrounded by two rivers. They need to control the two rivers. Okay? The rivers would flood in the spring. And when they flooded, they would the rivers would leave behind these natural levees. These levees are these areas of raised soil. Well, the Sumerians realized that if they raise those levees even higher, if they help build them up, that would actually keep the floodwaters back. Well, then you get the problem in the summer. In the summer when it's dry and there isn't any rain and the rivers aren't flooding, well, they need water then. So what they would do is almost poke holes in the levees, and they would build canals to kind of irrigate their crops, bring that water to their crops that they needed. The chief crop of the Sumerians was barley. Barley is a type of grain. Okay? They also grew wheat and sesame and flax, fruit, date palms, vegetables. But to do all of this, you needed planning. You needed planning. They had to work together to build these irrigation canals. And eventually, the people get together and realize they need laws. So that way people know what's expected of them. What are they allowed to do and not allowed to do? And very soon it starts growing into cities. But the thing is, in this environment, they got to figure out what to build the cities out of. There wasn't much in the way of trees. There wasn't much in the way of stone. But what they could use was river mud. And they would use river mud and they would crush up reeds along the river and they would make these bricks. And then they would put the bricks out in the sun to harden them. And then you could use these bricks to build cities. And the greatest city of the Sumerians is going to be the city of Ur.